Welcome to Everyday Ethics, everybody. I'm your host, Michael Liebowitz, and I am very happy to have you here with me today on this day after New Year's. I had a wonderful day yesterday. I hope you did as well. Remember that we do have super chats and super stickers, and they are always greatly appreciated. I was thinking this morning about what got me thinking about it really was politics and people that follow politicians and repeat the lies of politicians and believe the lies of politicians. And I was just thinking about their culpability because I think people that spread misinformation, whether they be online influencers, politicians, the mainstream media, whatever, are culpable for the nonsense they spread. But I also think the people that take that stuff in and regurgitate it without thinking about it are culpable. And I'm just wondering to myself, do they know that they're being lied to, and do they like being lied to? Do they like the delusion? And I thought about a lot of examples from my past. So let's just go through a few of them. Well, my parents were both drug addicts. I think I've told you that before. So my father would bother my grandmother for money every day. And my grandmother would give him the money, and she knew that he was a drug addict, and she had to know that the money was for drugs. But he had to concoct a story every day for why he needed the money. It was a court case, it was a flat tire, whatever, over and over again, every day for years and years and years. And I asked him one day, she knows what you're doing with the money. What is the issue here? Why the story? And he said, well, she likes to hear the story. I thought, that's just weird to me. But I'm also thinking about my mom and my mother. One time, my mother had a prescription for a medication, a cough syrup called Tussinex. Tussinex is an opiate. There's an opiate derivative in it, or a synthetic opiate derivative in it, something along those lines. And my friends and I wanted it, and we harassed my mother for it, or I harassed her, but she would not give it to me. But then my parents were, hey, Daniel. Then my parents were drug sick. Dr. House said everyone lies. And so my mother wanted the money that I would be willing to pay for the Tussinex. But my mother didn't want to sell it to me. So she gave it to my father to come and sell it to me. But she knew I was buying it, and she did it anyway. But there had to be a pretense. She had to convince herself that she was not doing it. And I think also about when I was incarcerated, there's so many examples. So the day before, let's say a commissioner is coming in, or outside, whatever, they're coming in to inspect the prison, they would have us, get the place snazzy, do the floors, they're painting, they're making it all look different. But the commissioner used to work in the Department of Correction. He knows that's what they're doing. But he goes for it anyway. The lieutenants tour the blocks. Lieutenants, captains, wardens, everybody tour the blocks. Whenever a captain, lieutenant, or the warden are touring the block, or somebody else, from the outside, the phone call goes out throughout the prison to each of the blocks. Brass is touring, brass is touring, brass is touring. So Jenna Kleem, thank you, by the way, for the super chat. Very, very appreciated. So the brass is touring, so they all know to get their acts in gear. And the brass were all formerly correctional officers. They all know that this is happening. I once had to talk to the warden about something, and I went and I said, hey, warden, let me talk to you. And he said, well, how did you know I was coming? Was there an announcement made? And I said, no. And I said, but they do that. He said, of course I know it. I used to be the one making that call. So it's a charade, and everybody knows it, but they all do it. Then there's a situation. I was in a drug program in prison, and they would coach the inmates how to perform in front of the parole board. They would tell them what to say, how to act. They would go through mock parole hearings to train them what to do. So a guy would go to the parole and get it, and then the guy would say, they would have a congratulations. Oh, you did so wonderfully in your parole hearing. That was so great. Everybody in the room knew the guy was coached, but they pretended. And it just makes me think, like, what kind of evasion has to take place in order for somebody to want to be lied to believe lies that are palpable, that they have all the information is there to know it, but they believe it. It doesn't matter. And, I think about President Trump and his idea that the 2020 election was stolen from him. And it doesn't matter how many cases he lost. It doesn't matter how many people said, no, it's not true. It doesn't matter with the evidence. They believe it. And they've locked themselves in an airtight container. So no information from the outside is allowed. The thing is, when you play games like that with reality, when you feign to believe or convince yourself that lies are true, you're putting yourself at odds with reality, with what is true, with what is real. There's nothing to be gained by doing that. Nothing. Now, when I say that, I'm speaking for over the long term. I get that you can lie and convince somebody of something and get something from them, or you can get away with something that you've done. I'm not disputing that. I'm saying long term, when you put yourself at odds with reality, you will lose. And yet people do it. Is anybody else out there familiar with this dynamic? Anybody got any comments or questions about it? Because it baffles me. It does, because I just can't put myself inside the mind of somebody that does that's somebody that wants to be lied to, that tunes into the likes of a Tucker Carlson or a Candace Owens or comic Dave Smith and just wants to hear the bullshit. I have no interest in spreading bullshit. I have no answer in hearing bullshit. I just don't. I mean, it's not my jam, but there are a lot of people out there that do. So what do you think about that? I'm very interested, and I'd like to hear your questions. I'd like to hear your comments or read them, whatever. I'm not actually hearing them, but I'll read them. So yesterday I went to a party at Gene Epstein, the leader or the head of the Soho Forum debates, and I went to a party at his house. It was really nice. Had a lot of nice conversations with intelligent people, and I got to tell you, having conversations with intelligent people, even those with whom you disagree, is very, very edifying. It's very productive. It so beats, like, I remember, in prison, and guys are sitting around and they're talking about sports and rap music and, oh my God. And it's just the same monotonous stuff every day, the same garbage. To be able to go and have conversations with smart people is just great. I highly recommend that for the people that you want to grow, you want to learn, you want to improve yourself morally. That's a good place to, I don't know about begin, but it's definitely something that will very much help to facilitate that kind of growth, is just talking with smart people. And now you think about, how do people get to be smart? I mean, obviously, yes, I'm not going to dispute genetics, that play a role in high IQ or skill and talent. But by and large, it takes really working for it, working very, very hard. But imagine if you were trying to learn, but you discounted facts. You sought out lies. You wanted to be lied to. How smart would you be? How smart would you get? And then what happens if you tried to implement that stuff? Now, it's easy to see in some cases it's not. Now, let's just take carpentry, for instance. Wood, for instance, in moisture, it really acts up. It gets distorted. It bends. Certain type of woods are hardwoods, oak, maple. Some are softwoods. And, some woods interact differently with stains. If you are going to put some types of stain on wood, the first thing that you're going to want to do is put a, I can't remember what the hell it's called now, a wood conditioner on it, because otherwise it's going to come out real blotchy and look real messed up. So you want to put that on first. Now, imagine if somebody was going to be a carpenter or a cabinet maker, and they just said, I don't care about the truth. I don't care about the reality. Plastic works as well as wood. I can use a nail instead of a screw, and Elmer's glue instead of Gorilla Glue, and I'm going to put this thing together and it's still going to work. Well, he'd find out that it doesn't go that way. That reality doesn't bend to his whims, right? And there's a lot of situations like that. If you're a race car driver, I don't know why that popped me in the head, but popped in my head. But if you're a race car driver, for instance, you have to get a good team that understands how to, a pit crew, to change tires, to change oil, to get the car ready. You got to get the right car, and you got to know how to drive fast. You got to have split-second reaction times. Now, what if you just went and got a bunch of guys who were hanging out at the local park shooting hoops and said, I want you guys to be my pit crew. You showed up in a 77 Chevy Nova and you said, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to win a race. You'd find out, no, reality doesn't bend. But when you're dealing with things, for instance, like a stolen election, and or the claims of a stolen election, and you're spreading that around, there's no immediate impact, especially when you've got a tribe of people who are willing to go along with your bullshit, right? But, and it's a big but, you end up with somebody like a Trump in office, and what he does may not bite you in the ass immediately, but when you engage in that, when those are the leaders you elect, and by the way, I'm saying both sides. I'm using Trump. I'm not a both sides guy. I'm just saying politicians in general. If you're electing people that do this kind of stuff, if you're believing their lies, you never know how it's going to come back and bite you, ever. You just don't. And that's why trafficking in delusions, trafficking in illusions, believing lies, trying to make real that which isn't, never, ever, ever the way to go. Jim Valiant says, yes, lies to others are bad enough. Lies to myself mean that I've lost any contact with reality at all. Pretense is as common as it is ugly. I agree, Jim. And something that, really reflects on self-esteem. We talked about self-esteem the other day. It really reflects on self-esteem when somebody knows something about themselves that they don't like, and they lie to somebody else about it because they're afraid what that other person's going to think. Now, what has happened here? First of all, you've elevated lie above truth, but also you've elevated the consciousness of another person above your own. You're saying that as long as that guy or that girl doesn't know, it's okay. But you know, right? Now, deep down, I have to think that the people who look for others to lie to them, they know the truth. Now, imagine what that does to your self-esteem. When your subconscious remembers that you've done this, your subconscious remembers that you've elevated lies above truth, that you preferred bullshit to reality. Your subconscious knows what you're doing because you know what you're doing when you do it. When you suppress it, that's a conscious act. You remember it somewhere. And more, you tell yourself, you teach yourself, I'm the type of person that does not care about truth. I'm the type of person that doesn't care about reality. Now, if self-esteem entails partly the belief that I'm capable of succeeding in reality, but I'm constantly deceiving myself about reality, and I'm teaching myself that I'm not concerned with reality, how do I come to feel about myself and my ability to live in reality? No Name with a 149 in euro super sticker. Thank you so much. She asked, is delusion bad? And I would say, yes, I have to conclude it is. Yeah, the delusion's bad. It's never good to put yourself at odds with what is real. I mean, just think about it in terms of something simple. Like, let's give an extreme example just to illustrate, right? It's a summer day and you're hot and there's a sprinkler outside and you're going to run through that sprinkler. You could do that over and over again, back and forth. You're getting wet. It's nice. You're cooling down. Now imagine if you tried to pretend a brick wall was going to have the same effect and you ran full speed ahead. You'd smash yourself on that wall because you're deluding yourself about reality. You're pretending something is other than what it is. And even when it's small and even when you can't see, even when it's abstract, it has the same effect, just not immediately and to the same extent, but in principle, it's the same. You're putting yourself at odds with what is real, and only harm can come from it. Never any good. Daniel says, I believe mental health may play a part in some people's behavior when it comes to lying or delusional beliefs. Well, yeah, we're not talking about schizophrenics. We're not talking about people who have brain damage or who actually are delusional. We're talking about people with the capacity to know the truth, who nonetheless choose to pursue lies, choose to have people lie to them over and over and over again. I could, and I could fact check Donald Trump 6 ways to Sunday. I could show the ways he lies. I could go to multiple sources. I could go to his speech. If somebody wants to believe him, that's what they're going to do. The facts simply do not matter. They just don't. When I'm confronted with something that conflicts with my beliefs and it seems true, I have a choice. I can either study it further and then rectify my belief if it turns out that I'm wrong, or if I'm learned that I'm right, well, then I've still learned something new because I've studied. Or I could just discount anything that's contrary to my worldview, anything that's contrary to what I think. I could ascribe it to it's the media, that's the left-wing media, that's the right-wing media. Oh, that's just, Jim Valiant saying that's not true. Oh, that's just that guy's opinion, that sort of thing. But to do that again puts me at odds with truth, puts me at odds with reality. We do not want to do that. Not if we want to be ethical on an everyday basis. We definitely do not want to do that. I got a question about real quickly, a little divergence. So if you have any questions, think of them. Do our phones listen to us? Do they track us? Yesterday I went to the subway. I got on the subway. And there were no more Metro cards available on the subway. You now have to buy these little tickets, whatever. Like 20 minutes later on Facebook, I'm seeing advertisements about how there's no more Metro cards. Now, I didn't talk about this with anybody. I didn't tell anybody. And I've never in my life gotten that advertisement before or any advertisements about the subway. But now I'm in New York City, just got off the subway, and I get this notification. A little peculiar, a little strange, and it happens more often than I'd care for it to happen. I mean, ultimately, with anything, there's cost and there's benefits, and the cost, the benefit of having the phone and being able to access all the information that I want to access, it's worth it to me. Maybe to some people it's not. I don't know. So they track your location, your search history, your browsing habits, your app behavior on Insta, Facebook, etc. Well, I mean, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Like I said, I think that the benefits far outweigh the costs. I'm going to share. I forgot to share this episode with Mark. Mark has so many more followers than I do that whatever I share with him and he posts it, I get much more views. And given that the goal is more views, that's what I'm going to do. Daniel says he could make a lot more money if he were dishonest, but he won't cut corners. That's more expensive to me, lessening my margins. I just couldn't be a dirtbag. I think, Daniel, that over the long haul, you would not make more money by being dishonest. And I also would say that the money is not the only benefit, right? There's so many different factors in terms of your own conscience, in terms of your reputation, of how your family sees you, about the lies you have to continue to tell to cover up the first lie that you've told. There's a lot more than just the immediate money. And then once your reputation is kaput, the money's gone, and then you're broke. And by the way, Daniel, don't think I didn't notice that when I tried to get in touch with you on Wednesday to go get coffee, you were nowhere to be found. I am aware of that. I'm wondering if anybody has any goals now we're in the new year. Persephone says that so many people in our industry are extremely dishonest, and it's something we have to combat all the time. It's frustrating. Yes. That's why it's so important to surround yourself with people of integrity, to surround yourself with people who are honest, who tell the truth, who want what's best for you, who aren't going to try to deceive you or get over on you. You don't need 10,000 people in your life who are going to piss on your leg and tell you it's raining. You need one or two people that are going to tell you the absolute truth all the time. That's what we need in this world. That's what we, I mean, it's just, I can't overemphasize enough that how important it is. Speaking of which, in New York City yesterday, I got off the subway on Canal Street, and an Asian woman comes up and says, "You want purse? You want purse?" I don't want any purses. I'll take you to get purse. And I'm like, "Yeah, that's an odd thing." I'm thinking to, you know, I'm used to when I'm in, when I, before I went to prison, people coming up, "You want drug? You want weed? You want coke?" Something like that, not a purse. But Diana, my girlfriend, informed me that no, this is the street where they're very big for this. They sell these purses. Like, people go there to buy them, and they're knockoffs, some of them. And I'm just like, you're putting your trust in street vendors when for hundreds and hundreds of dollars for handbags. It seems crazy to me. Somebody was selling, I think, iPhones also. And somebody that I was with walking with says, yeah, I asked the guy, "Hey, are those real?" "Oh, yeah, yeah, of course they're real." And I'm just thinking, oh, yeah, because these guys are known for their honesty. There's no way this guy would lie to you. Some guy on the street that you have no idea, where he got these phones, nothing. But, so you got to be careful whom you trust. You got to be careful, well, who you tell your secrets to, who you associate with, who you're around. You want to make sure that you're around good people. Persephone's goal this year is to officially launch 3 new businesses that have been in the pipeline for the last 2 years. Awesome. Mr. Deagle wants to know, is lying to somebody about your personal info that has no effect on them okay? I kind of need more context on that, but let's say somebody is prying into your business. And it also, if it's none of their business and they're prying into your business, I would say that, yeah, there's, you don't owe that person to tell them the truth. If it's your personal stuff and that person's prying, it's that person that's being intrusive, not you. Yes, my landlord is an asshole. That's a good question, but yes, he is. Yeah, so that person is prying. It's similar to me if somebody is, asking you where your money is so they can steal it, and then you say, no, it's over here when it really isn't. That's fine. And like, let's just say, suppose you are in a new relationship and you don't want anybody to know about it for whatever reason, you know what I mean? And some guy comes over and says, "Hey, are you in this relationship? Are you dating her? Are you dating him?" And you say, "No, I'm not." There's nothing wrong with that if it's not harming that person, if it's none of that person's business. But I will say that there are relationships where, at certain levels of intimacy where truth, I think, is expected and you should offer it. I'm not going to lie to my landlord, for instance. My landlord is the guy that asked the question. He's just being a schmuck. But I'm not going to lie to him about anything. I mean, I think that it's implied in our friendship, in our relationship, that I'm going to tell him the truth. The same thing with Jim Valiant or Danny. I'm going to tell them the truth. I'm not going to lie to them. If something truly was not their business, I would just say, I don't want to talk about that, but I wouldn't actually fabricate something. I wouldn't bring a lie into the world and tell it to them. I think that would be wrong because we're friends, we're close friends, and it's implied that I tell the truth. But just some busybody, I would say go ahead and lie to him. What the hell? There's nothing wrong with that. But I think it's important that we don't then use that as a rationalization to start lying to people. Oh, it's none of this guy's business. Let me just make up a whopper and tell him. Also, I've known a lot of people who lied just to lie, without harming the other person, but just making up stories. That I would say it's unethical, not because of the lie you're telling the person, but because of the harm they're doing them to themselves, to elevating the consciousness of other people to the point where they think that this person, it's worthy to just deceive them, and that's going to be entertaining or fun or whatever. And the messages you send yourself, the damage that you reinforce over and over again, I would definitely say is unethical. Mr. Deagle says Norm Macdonald had cancer and hid it from everybody, including his close friends. Was that moral? I can't answer that, Mr. Deagle. I simply don't know the context. I don't know his friends. I don't know why he did it. I don't know what effect it had on them. I don't know what effect it had on him. So I'm sorry, I can't. I just can't answer. It's very difficult when you start talking about the personal business of people that you don't know, right? Whoa, was that right for him to do? I'm far more concerned, Mr. Deagle, honestly, rather than worrying about what Norm McDonald's doing. I'm concerned with what I'm doing and what the people with whom I'm associating are doing. I'm not associating with Norm McDonald. So I don't need to know that. I mean, I don't need to know if he is a liar. I don't need to know anything about the man. If he's running for office, I need to know. No, I understand it's just an example, Mr. Deagle, but I want you to bring examples down to earth, down to your life. How is it going to affect you? What is your given context? Because that matters far more than what some celebrity is doing that we don't know all the information and can't know, right? You know about your life. So if you are intentionally deceiving everybody around you um, about an illness that you have, and the fact that you're lying to the people that you claim to love is going to cause them harm in some way, I wouldn't do it, right? I would not do that. Jim Valiant says silence is not a lie unless you owe the information in a specific context, and that I agree with. Um, but I think there are contexts and relationships where you do, owe that. I mean, when Melissa had cancer, but my girlfriend Melissa that passed away. I mean, I was there when she found out. Um, but if I wasn't and she hid that from me, that would destroy me. Just have her die one day, I would be destroyed. And to think that somebody that I loved so much and trusted so much could do that to me, that would be terrible. Um, so, I do think that there's context in which we do owe the truth. Jim says he's sad that he didn't have a friend he could tell. And Daniel says 100%. So let me see. Subby asked a question. How many friends do you think you've gotten rid of because they are not good people? Whoo, I don't know about friends, because I don't know how somebody that's not a good person could actually be a friend. I know that there's people with whom I don't hang around or I don't associate in by intention because of the kind of people they are. In prison, I certainly walked away from a lot of people and stopped dealing with them because of the type of people they were. I don't have an exact number for it, but it's a good idea. If somebody is bringing more negatives to your life than positives to your life, it's probably wise to cut that person out of your life. That's, I think that is a pretty, I don't want to say obvious. The problem is oftentimes you'll hear people say things are obvious because it's obvious to them after a lot of, lot of years of study. Yesterday, Gene Epstein, at his party, he's an economist, and he says that, it's obvious, that the labor theory of value is wrong. And well, yeah, it's obvious to a guy who studied economics his whole life and is 81 years old, who has the benefit of hundreds of years of economic writing. I don't know how obvious it would be to somebody in the 18th century, or how obvious it is to somebody who's not initiated in economics. So when it comes to stuff like ethics, this is especially the topic of the type of people you deal with. It's something that I've studied for years and years and years. So it appears obvious, but it probably isn't. And I think that we do a disservice to the people in our lives when we tell them, oh, that's obvious, but it's really not. I think that understanding where people are at a given time is very important. The Declaration of Independence, one of my favorite documents of all time, says that, the fact that human beings have rights is self-evident, but it's not. uh, you know, even the theory of rights upon which they were relying, that of John Locke, was mistaken. And Locke, he came along after centuries of this stuff. And even after Locke, we had Jeremy Bentham come forward and say that rights were nonsense on stilts. It wasn't until Ayn Rand that we really had a theory of rights grounded in reality. and tied, to reality, to a broader moral system. Yes, Jim, a mistake shared by both Marx and Ricardo is probably not obvious. That's precisely my point. All right, everybody, have a fantastic weekend. Have a great time. I'll see you on Monday. And until then, be ethical.